Hey everyone. Hi Dushan. Hi Cherie. Hey Cherie, you're more than welcome to come on for a chat if you want to, okay? Hi Michael. Good to see you. I hope you can all hear and see me okay. I don't know what your picture is like. Mine looks okay. Let me know if there's any issues with audio. Hey Rich. Tucked up in bed. It's 8:30 in the evening, Cherie. I'll just put my phone on silent. All right. Hello, everyone. Hi, Michelle from west of Ireland. Lovely to see you here. All right. So there's 14 people on here. Okay. I'm here to answer any questions about. Well, it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days since I got back from Italy after a nice long flight back from there to Melbourne. Thankfully, I didn't get much. Really didn't suffer from jet lag too much, and I've really been spending the last week kind of really processing the whole experience. I thought now I'd be this week I'm going to be pretty busy. And hey, Keith, how are you? And I will. Tonight was a perfect opportunity for me to come on live stream, answer some questions. I've got all the samples that I accumulated while I was there. Excuse me, I just got a cough. Okay. I did come back with a bit of a cough, but I tested negative for COVID, so that was good. I thought I'd talk about it a little bit, answer any questions anyone had, what you're curious about. When I did get back home, there were a couple of parcels waiting for me. Excuse me. Hey, Filippo. So I'll briefly mention these first. I don't know if anyone here has heard of, I think you pronounce this Himajomo. Just before I left for Italy, and I haven't tried these yet, just before I left for Italy, I was contacted by the brand to see if I wanted to try something from them. They actually did offer to send a bottle, and thankfully they also accepted my suggestion to send me some samples, and they did send me their discovery kit, 4 cents. Nice touch with the blotters, and I haven't even opened what's in here. I know nothing about this brand, so I don't know if you guys have heard of them before, but just a couple of the people that I spoke that know them recommend. Like I said, they were pretty good. Okay, based on, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but basically inspired by the Himalayan region, and each scent represents a season. So there you go. I'll be testing those eventually and posting my thoughts Hey, Afonso. All right. What I'm going to do, hi, Andy. I'm going to post a link if you want to join me on the stream. But I will not just let anyone on. So I'm just going to, because I'm on time, I'm going to keep it on a time restriction. So I'll see who's interested in coming on. And here we go. So I was at Exsence last weekend. So the weekend just before this one. Happy Easter, by the way, to everyone who celebrates. It was my first time there, and it was pretty much everything I expected it to be, and probably a bit more. The first thing I'll say was that the first couple of days of the event restricted entry to basically anyone working in the perfume industry. So mainly people who work in perfume distribution, buyers, retailers, then also brands, and then people like myself who essentially are content creators on perfume, bloggers, much bigger channels, much bigger influencers, and that kind of thing. And that Thursday and Friday were basically set aside for those people to attend. But I tell you what, that very first day, I could not believe how crowded it was, and I couldn't. I was almost a bit apprehensive about how crowded it would be when they let the general public in on Saturday and Sunday. Hey, Anna. Hey, Kid Kentucky. Thank you. All right, let's start off with this. Now, I can tell you that there might be people who are watching the stream who went to Exsence. Zoologists did not have a stand at Exsence, a proper exhibit. But I didn't see that Victor Wong from Zoologist was there. And I'm sure that he had some samples and stuff with him, although I'm not sure if anyone I know smelled tiger. Quite possible someone did. So in saying that, I went each day, 4 days, right? And I didn't spend the whole day there because it basically opened at 10, and I think it stayed open until something like 6 p.m. or probably even later. Some people probably did stay the whole day because there were easily a few hundred different stands, different brands of perfumes, and obviously different perfumes within each brand. I went there a few hours each day, and I still did not smell like so many brands, right? So I kind of gravitated towards brands that I'd heard about that I had not smelled yet. Okay, ones that had been recommended, and there were a few brands there that like I already know I didn't care for, and I kind of basically ignored them. But the scale of the whole thing is just enormous, and I would have just been too overwhelmed to even try to get to every every stand, let alone try and smell everything. By after a couple of hours, like my nose was done, my skin was done, and Yeah, so I I definitely highly recommend it if you get the opportunity to go. It's so worth going, and I'll go into that in a second as to why. Um, all right, yeah. So Andy was there. I hope I didn't see you and not and ignore you. Oh, well, I probably would not have realized it was you, Andy. Um, Overwhelming, yeah. It was so packed. At one stage, I was kind of trying to convince myself that I wouldn't go on the weekend, but yeah. Um, okay, I'm not sure what that means, Dushan, but presumably that's the name of the Krizia perfume. And yes, Italia is better. I'm going to say something about Milan that might upset people from Milan. I don't know. Uh, because I've had the opportunity. I've been lucky enough to visit a few other cities in Italy, um, and Milan was lovely. There's nothing wrong with it, except it's when you've been to a few of the other cities. It's hard. It's almost hard to get excited by Milan itself, if that makes any sense. Um, Was it tricky to get into the stands, Sheree? Um, not tricky because it's basically if you can imagine a convention like it happens here, like there's boat shows, there's car shows, and all of that kind of thing. It's set up that way. It's this huge building slash warehouse, and basically it's a maze of stands and tables, and obviously there are always going to be stands that are more popular than others, and in some cases, I mean, getting to the stands is fine, but in some stands there were already a couple of rows of people there, so you might be waiting around a bit before you get to actually smell anything. um, there were a couple of stands that I noticed were constantly busy. A lot of the brand owners and perfumers were very busy, because people had obviously made appointments to speak to them prior to the event, and they could have been a combination of retail buyers or distributors, as well as perfume journalists or bloggers or whatever who wanted to interview them. Um, because I guess the whole point of being there is to get that exposure, sell your perfume to distribution, more retail, etc. The stands that I noticed were pretty busy. Every time I kind of walked past them, um, Filippo Sorcinelli, who does the Unum, is it Unum brand? His stand constantly. I actually couldn't be bothered trying to find out what was going on in that stand, but um, there was always people there. So in a way, it actually turned me off of finding out what was there. It was more. It seemed like more of an event than about the perfumes. The Mio Fushini stand seemed constantly busy, although I did get to smell quite a few of the perfumes there. Yeah, but otherwise, if you kind of sort of walked around enough, you got to smell what you wanted to smell. Um, I I mean, I don't know how people are there the whole day just smelling everything. At some point, it's got to affect you. That's okay, Sarah. Well, I didn't. I deliberately did not make any appointments to speak to any of the brands because it wasn't. I wanted to make this visit um, more of a pleasurable one than a work one, because I just kind of wanted to take my time and take it all in. And I know there are, like, you know, I'm a small YouTube channel, so I can understand some of the bigger channels, you know, wanting to get that interview, and bloggers wanting to get an interview with people so they can film it and put it on their video. But I tell you what was fun. The very first, probably the first 15 minutes we were there, we saw Jean-Claude Elena, who I didn't realize would be there. He was with the Laboratorio Olfativo brand because he's done a few perfumes for them. So he was at their stand for the first couple of days at least. And definitely he was very in demand for taking pictures with. And also, I know a couple of people got to actually speak to him and interview him for their blogs. I haven't read it. I don't really go on Fragrantica and read the articles anymore, Alfonso. Yeah, Francesca Bianchi basically was always busy talking to someone. Yeah. Sorcinelli, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure who Patsaglia is. Yeah, it hasn't turned me off the brands, but you know, like especially Francesca Bianchi was just her and someone else helping her. They had a small stand, and she was very busy talking to people. Yeah. Okay. Miguel Matos. No, I don't. I haven't read that article on Fragrantica. So what I thought I'd do is actually show you guys a few of the highlights in terms of the perfumes that I smelled at Exsence. And I won't go through what they smell like, but just keep your eyes out for a couple of these brands. I really enjoyed the stuff I smelled. So I was lucky enough to. I'm just going to maybe put it on a banner. Just give me a second. So the first brand that I want to talk about is. Did that work? All right. There we go. So Eau de Bougie, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is basically the new perfume line from Bougie, which is started off as candles. And the perfumer behind it is Pierre Long, who is the perfumer. I can tell you that she was a perfumer behind Chipmunk for Zoologists. That's probably the most recent one that she's done that's got a bit of exposure. This is her line that this is her brand that she is doing with Nick Gilbert, who I know from the Fume Chat podcast, and he's written a lot of art, perfume reviews and articles, etc. They were at the stand, got to meet them, and they've got 4 new perfumes that have not launched yet. And what I'll do at the end of this live stream is put a link to their website. Definitely worth maybe signing up to their mailing address, because there's a couple of perfumes here. I mean, I really liked all 4. that are going to be released. There is one called, I don't know if you can see that. This is Verdant. The other one is Queen. I was lucky enough to get these samplers. This is the leather here, and this one, which was basically my favorite perfume that I smelled the whole weekend. I don't know if you can read it. This one's called Gilded. It's beautiful. I mean, it's not going to do it any justice to tell you just a couple of the things I smell in here, but it's a beautiful, really evocative, aldehydic frankincense, sparkly kind of perfume. I've only worn it a couple of times, and each time, every time I smell this, I can't think of even anything really that I can point you to that it resembles to me. It's such a beautiful, beautiful perfume. I first smelled it on the blotter, and then I've sprayed it on my skin, and it was just amazing. Verdant was a really good green perfume as well, and that here is top-notch leather as well. So Eau de Bougie, if you check my description later on, I'll link to their website. These will be released hopefully in the next few months, and I highly recommend you sampling them. All right, so let me go to see if anyone's asked anything. Sarah, I didn't really get to smell many at the Laboratorio Olfativo. I have smelled a couple of the Jean-Claude Helena compositions from a few years ago, but I think there was one that I smelled called Bergamotto, which is basically around the bergamot note, and it was beautiful. Was that one of the last two? Okay, so the other brand that I really enjoyed was a brand called Rubini. Rubini Profumi, based in Italy. They had just released one called, well, it's actually very brand new. I don't even know if it's available for sale, but this Exsence is where a lot of brands do sort of launch their brand new perfumes. It was called, actually, what I'll do first is mention this one. This one from Rubini is called Nuvolari. Yes, Filippo, I'm about to spray it. I've got to say, this is one of the best. It is really like, I know it's a cliche because Fahrenheit, Dior's Fahrenheit is known for this petrol leather, but it's more, that one's more floral. This is really, greasy leather, like it's motor grease oil leather, but done in a totally pleasant, wearable way. I mean, I really feel like I'm sitting in like a vintage leather interior, open top Alfa Romeo. Oh my God, it's so good, so good. That's Nuvolari from Rubini. And the other one, the new one, is Eau de Naturem. Is that how you spell it? I'll just got to get it out now because Eau de Naturum. But you've got the idea. That one's a beautiful green, a green one. Gasoline oil, exactly. So Rubini and Eau de Bougie were two standout brands for me that basically, like, I have sort of spent a lot of time thinking about since I've come back from Exsence. The third brand that I'll mention, and then like I can take more questions, is Manos Gerakinis. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. He was generous enough as well to give me several samples. Now, there were a couple of his fragrances that I'd already heard about that I had wanted to try for a while and hadn't. Basically, they're not really available in Australia to sample. Namely, the main one was the Immortelle one, which now I can't seem to find. It's in here somewhere. If you can, this is basically all the samples I came home with from Exsence. But there was one that I really liked. This, I think it's called Meo Exis. I'm probably going to run out of skin here. So good. I don't know. I don't remember the notes in any of these ones. Quintessence. Anyway, I really liked most of the perfumes I tried. And Sarah, you make a great point. So now, Manos Gerakinis, the gentleman from Rubini, Pia and Nick from Bougie, amongst basically the people I was with. I don't know if they had the same experience as me, but everyone who took the time out to talk about their perfumes with me, they all were really personable. No one came across as rude. So essentially what I'm trying to say is I didn't have any negative experiences at Exsence at all with the people. So thankfully I actually, what I was more worried about was going to a show like this and literally not smelling anything exciting or original, and thankfully that wasn't the case. I'm sure that I probably if I'd smelled a lot more overall, I would have thought if I wanted to take a more negative viewpoint, I still would have said, well, there wasn't that much new under the sun. But what gave me a lot of hope and excitement was there actually are some smaller indie perfumers doing some really good things. And so that was great. So that part of it was great. And I didn't have any negativity, negative interactions at Exsence. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think it's all about also my main takeaway. What I was lucky enough to experience when I was there was that I got to meet several people who I already knew from the internet, from YouTube, from Instagram. I'd spoken to these people online before, and in Milan, I was able to see them in person, hug them, shake their hands, say hi, have drinks with them. and it was fantastic. And that was the best part of the whole event for me. And yes, Manos Gerakinis seemed like a great guy. Not one single time, Rich. No one. Well, like I would not understand why anyone at those stands would say, do you want a free bottle? Maybe I'm just like I'm not well known enough, like I don't know if it was even happening. I certainly didn't get offered any free bottles, and in fact, most of the time I politely asked if I liked something and I wanted to test it, I asked if they had samples. And if they did, they were more than happy to give me samples. So I just came home with a bunch of samples. Some of the stands didn't even have any samples, and that was fun. I only asked for samples when I liked what I smelled at the stand itself. Yes, Susanna. I got to meet Susanna there as well. No, Wesker doesn't ring a bell, so I could have missed them, and it was totally possible. There were many brands there that I didn't get to smell. Dushan, you want to send me a free bottle? Yeah, okay. And that's fine. I think and Anna, like I said, I only asked for samples if like if I know that I was going to go home and not be able to smell that scent, until I was able to get samples. So that's why I'm happy to ask for samples if they've got them. They can say no. Some of them said they didn't have enough or whatever, so that was fine. I think, I think it's more when influencers actually flat out just ask the brand for bottles. I didn't see anyone do that. So, you know. No, I didn't smell any ruse and ruse at all. I'll tell you one regret I had, because I've seen quite a few people post about them since. I wish I'd taken more time to try and smell J scent, because they seem to have gotten good feedback as well. Like there are other brands I could talk about that I got to try, but I wanted to mention in particular the ones that I really, really liked. But it was a great time. So yeah, now I'm definitely very seriously, now that I'm back, I'm very seriously considering going to Florence in September for the Pitti show. I have been to that before, back in 2019, just before the pandemic, and I've been wanting to go back ever since. And Florence is a beautiful, beautiful city. The major difference with Pitti is that it's not open to the general public as well. So it's essentially 3 days of industry people there. It's less crowded. I think it's in a kind of nicer venue space where they do it in Florence. And yeah, now I'm just already secretly looking at accommodation and flights. I'm actually very excited to be going to Florence, to be honest. All right. Any more questions from anybody? I have a couple of reasons I need to go to Florence, right, Cherie? All right. But in the meantime, what if, like while I wait for questions, if anyone's got them. So when I got back home, there was a parcel waiting for me. And someone was very generous and sent me a parcel full of miniature perfume bottles. A couple of you will probably know who these came from. I won't mention just because I haven't asked if it's okay, but I got like stuff like a miniature Azaro Pohom, and I think this is like a vintage version, as well as Givenchy Gentleman, like the 1974 version. Francesco Smolto, Givenchy 3. I've got like a whole box of them. Dunhill Edition. What's this one? Charles Jourdan en Homme. What else? Arrogance. This is Arrogance pour Femme, by who makes that? I don't even know. Enrico Corveri. I've got Hermes Kalesh. I just wanted to show you because it was a very generous box of miniatures. Yes, Rich, you're onto it. Okay. Oh, at PT, you mean? That's a shame. I mean, for me, it's kind of perfect because I'm not one who'll be looking to do too much at the fair anyway, but I'll be just happy to be in Florence, to be honest. Afonso, this is a very interesting question. Basically, within the context of me just being at Exsence and trying a whole bunch of new things. To answer that question, is niche turning into designer? I honestly can't tell you for sure. Like, if what you mean is there is big niche, like the big niche companies, I don't know, let's just say brands like Parfum de Mali, Zerjov, I don't know, like those bigger niche fragrances. To me, based on what I've smelled, generally, I'm generalizing here, right? Like there's not a lot of originality. For me, all the originality now is in the hands of the indie perfumers. Not all of it is good. I'm talking about indie. Not all of it is good. But if you want originality, something unique, I think you kind of have to look there. Yeah, that's pretty much the way to do it. There's no, Rich, I don't know what you mean. There's no influencer side of Exsence. Like, people know people, but I didn't feel like I was segregated. And to be honest, like I saw a couple of people who were influencers, but they didn't affect my experience. In fact, one or two of them avoided eye contact with me. Oh yeah, that I meant. Sorry, I mentioned that right at the beginning. The first 2 days, it's not just for influencers. So that's actually there's probably actually more buyers, retail buyers, distributors, other brands, and bloggers and influencers, content creators, whatever you want to call them. They can go in the first 2 days. So yeah, I went on those first 2 days basically because of my YouTube channel. I actually didn't see much of that, Anna. So it was like that's good for me anyway. I got to meet heaps of really wonderful. Seriously, I'm one of the more antisocial. Actually, I won't say antisocial, least social people in real life, and like I just really loved meeting the people that I got to meet and spend time with. There's a couple of really fun nights that we had there in Milan, which I'll treasure like forever. Like it's a really great memory to have. Uh, what else have I got here? Yeah, so well, we'll see. I Cherie, like it's a shame you weren't there because I got to go out and have dinner and drinks like with people that I could never have like even imagined I'd get to speak to, and it was great to talk about like a common passion, and everyone was just on the same level. It was great. Like, there got to speak to people making perfume, people writing about perfume, people who sold perfume. Um, it was awesome and the best part was getting to hear everyone's angle. Because, as a YouTuber, I'm coming from one angle all the time. Now that I'm involved with Miskeo, there's that angle as well, and then you get to speak to other indie perfumers, and realize that they have the same issues. A blogger who writes, who needs to actually speak to people, ask them questions. Then you talk to brand owners about how tough it is to get there. And the other thing about Exsence as well that I haven't mentioned yet, was is that it's like, let's face it, it's fucking expensive uh, venture for someone to have a stand there for 4 days, especially if they are a one or two person indie brand. That's a big outlay for 4 days commitment, and most of the time traveling to a foreign city, and in the hope that um, you get noticed and you might get someone interested to sell your brand, etc. So it was a real eye opener, and it seems to me an event like Exxence will continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and possibly even like make it just that much harder for indies to get a foot into that type of event, that type of exposure, because it's just not cheap to have a stand. Like, we're talking minimum thousands, a few $1,000s to have a stand there, at a minimum. I don't know the exact prices, but then there would be a scale, because obviously some brands had a bigger space, more elaborate design, more eye-catching, um, decorated stands. So yeah, who knows where it's going to end up, and also what type of brands will be there, as well. there were a lot of brands that actually did not even have well, not a lot. There were several brands that didn't even have a stand there, but they were set up externally from Exsence and taking appointments with buyers and distributors and stuff like that. And I think that goes on most years, but yeah. Okay. Michelle, there were a few. I did go to one talk, which was interesting. Had a few perfumers on a panel being moderated by someone talking about. Uh, it was supposed to be kind of talking about their backgrounds, how they got educated, how they taught themselves to make perfumes, their experience, and so on. It was supposed to be about a little bit about diversity as well. It it was a little bit disappointing in that it didn't really cover a lot of that. But what was interesting was that there were a couple of, I guess, self-taught independent perfumers on the panel. One or two trained perfumers who worked more for bigger brands and fragrance companies. And it was interesting to hear about their kind of day-to-day experience working as a perfumer and how different that experience was, how autonomous they were in creating their perfumes or not. I thought that was interesting, but it sort of didn't really cover off a lot of stuff that probably some people in the audience wanted to hear. There were lots of other talks as well. There were also other exhibits, not part of the main exhibition, that, like for instance, one of the best exhibits at Exsence was put together by Osmotec, who are basically the perfume museum based in Paris, and they had set up a stand celebrating the uh, the history of Italian perfumes, and they basically had recreations that you could smell of, landmark Italian perfumes through the ages. But they also had a table set up where they had like I don't even know what you call it. They had a bunch of little vials, and they were all recreations of classic vintage perfume. So they were recreations of the original, presumably. So I could smell what the original Guerlain Jiki smelled like, the original Hier de Rosé from Chanel, number 5. Then they had Fougère Royale by Coty, lots and lots of other perfumes as well. I got to smell a recreation of Gucci Pour Homme, the original one, which I've never smelled before. And you could take the blotters with you and like be like a reference, I guess. And that was really awesome. Yes, I like traveling alone, Andy. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It was interesting. And like I said, if you get the chance to go, I would definitely recommend it as an experience. You may never want to do it again, but it's I I don't see any reason to say don't do it, because just the opportunity to smell all those perfumes, and then if you happen to meet people there, it's an even better experience. And you're in Italy. Come on. What could be wrong about that? Okay. I don't like to have long live streams, so this is still close to an hour. If anyone has any other questions. Oh, this is an interesting question. um Off the top of my head, Michelle, I can't say specifically there was one perfume that reminded me that, made me think all futuristic. But I did get the impression, and I'm going to refer to the Eau de Bougie, this verdant perfume, this green perfume, to me is, a lot of green perfumes are kind of evocative of a past time, of a memory of something, an experience. When I smell this, it actually makes me think of uh, this type of green, and maybe it was because I was influenced about being in Milan as well, because Milan's famous has a couple of famous apartment buildings that are basically covered in plants. It's a very famous architectural design um, that incorporates a lot of greenery in their building. But when I smelled Verdant by Eau de Bougie, it made me think of the future of, uh, green smells on the planet, if that makes sense. There was something futuristic about that. But other than that, not really anything else that I smell. I'm sure there were probably lots there, but I didn't really notice them. Well, believe it or not, I went to the Duomo, I went to the Galleria, and I was close to the Fugia boutique. And even a lot of people who saw me post on Instagram said, "Oh, you should go," and I didn't go. I didn't spend a lot of time in other perfumeries smelling stuff. I think by the time I was out of Exsence, um, I was just done with smelling things. But a lot of people highly recommended that brand. So, maybe one day I'll get to smell them. I have so much to get through in terms of samples. Yeah, Michelle, so it doesn't feel nostalgic to me. It kind of feels a little bit I mean, I don't want to get corny about it, but it's kind of like a hopeful, futuristic green, if that makes any sense. Yeah, and if Rich Mitch is still on, I'm aware that you're a bit reluctant to want to go to a thing like this because of what you might have heard about previous editions of Exxence, but I think that you look, unless you really don't like crowds, and I don't love crowds either, you could still have a good time smelling things and not be bothered by any of that, influencer noise, and you might find something you really like. Um, Barolo, what's a Barolo? You're going to have to explain it to me because I didn't come across anything Barolo. I had a couple of nice meals in Milan, had some nice pasta and the risotto. I finally found some good gelati. I was struggling to find good gelato. I had the famous panzerotta. Well, I don't know about. I'm not sure about trends. What I did notice though, that I don't know if this is a trend, but I did try, and I couldn't tell you what they are now. I'm not going to be able to name them. Um, I did notice that there were a couple of interesting gourmands that I smelled, and I'm not a big gourmand fan, but I don't know. I'm kind of hoping it's not a trend because I haven't. I kind of want to want to be able to say gourmands have had their day, and maybe I'm just feeling that way because I don't wear them so much. Yeah, but not really anything very obvious. And this is correct. And Rich, if you come to Florence, you'll probably get to go to dinner with me and Cherie. Okay. No, I did not have. I had a few Negroni and some Aperol, but no wine for me. Red wine kind of really destroys me. All right. So I'll be having another live stream this weekend with Marie from Miskeo. We're going to be talking about the new release from the brand. So hopefully all you guys can join in and listen to that and learn more about the new perfume. But other than that, have you guys got any more questions? I'm happy to stick around, but I'm kind of all talked out, I guess. No? All right then. Well, I'll probably just say good night to everybody. Thanks for watching. I had about 30 people on watching. I didn't even ask for a super chat. How's that? I always forget. I'm doing this for free. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you for. Okay. Well, I can answer that. Well, we were there, so I was there with Marie, and we got to meet quite a few people, and quite a few people got to try and sample our perfumes. But basically, to be blunt, it was just something we probably needed a bit more time to prepare for, and budget probably didn't allow it either. Yes, we are, but it is for Australia, Cherie. I'm doing this at midnight on so Saturday midnight or Sunday morning. So it'll go into Sunday morning. So it might be past your bedtime. Okay. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm going to go and get ready for bed, and I'm back at work tomorrow after my short holiday. All right. We'll see if you're up at midnight then. Hopefully I'll see you there, Cherie. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm off, and lovely to speak to you. And feel free to leave any comments in this video, and I can get back to you about anything I spoke about on the stream. All right. Ciao, ciao. Arrivederci.